Hello everyone, welcome to my video lecture series on microcontrollers and embedded systems. Today I'll discuss on embedded firmware and onboard communications. After going through this section, the students will be able to know what embedded firmware is and its role in the embedded systems, and they are able to understand various chip level and external communication interfaces. Outline: we'll go through an embedded firmware and onboard and external communication interfaces. What is an embedded firmware? So basically it refers to a control algorithm or a program instructions, or a configuration settings of an embedded system, which a developer is going to write this configuration settings into a memory of embedded system. So it is a basic, as we say in a desktop, when we start our desktop computer, when we power it on, first thing that loads is BIOS, the basic input output systems. So this is a software which is loading all other hardwares and drivers which are connected to a desktop PC. Likewise, this control algorithm is also written into a memory of the embedded system, so that whatever the configured hardware and firmware, the software is loaded into the embedded system is going to be activated. So this is an unavoidable part of an embedded system. There are various methods available for developing the embedded firmware. So like, write the program in high level language like embedded C or C++ using an integrated development environment, that is IDE, some of the tools. Or else write the program in assembly language using the instructions supported by your application's target processor or controller. Say that, so there are so many IDEs are there, different IDEs or different methods that are used to generate an application using embedded C or C++ or assembly language. So these IDE contains, basically we all have used Keil Microvision 4 or the version 3, the version 4 or the version 3. So here the IDE contains, this Keil IDE contains an editor, a compilers, a linkers, a debuggers, simulators, and so many extra tools. So any chosen microcontroller understands only a hex file. Hex file is a binary file which is understood by any of the controllers. So therefore these IDEs require a ARMCC for embedded C language and ARM ASM for assembly language to be converted into a hex file. So it is nothing but ARMCC is a cross compiler for a C programming C language. ARM is advanced RISC machine, that a target processor we are going to write for it. So we need ARMCC, a cross compiler for embedded C language to be converted into a hex file, or else we require ARM ASM, ARM assembler, for assembly language to be converted into a hex file. So also there are third party tools are available. So they may be free versions or they may be paid versions. Next, we will move on a communication interfaces, onboard and offboard. or we can say it as external communications. So for an embedded product, the communication interface can be viewed in two different perspectives. So that a device or a board level communication interface, which are called as onboard communication interface. So these are arranged on a printed circuit board as a PC on the PCB only, and a product level communication interface, that is an external communication interface. So onboard communication interfaces are used for peripherals which are connected in a on a board only by using a PCB, and external communication interface are used which are external devices which wants to communicate with the embedded system. So we will go for the onboard communication first. They are I2C, SPI, UART, one wire interface and parallel interface. All these are onboard communication interface. These buses or these protocols are on the PCB itself, which are connecting a microcontroller and other peripheral devices for communication or for sharing a file and data. Here we will see the first one, I2C bus, which is also called as inter-integrated circuit. So basically this I2C is a synchronous bidirectional half duplex and two wire serial interface bus. It is having a two wires and it works on a half duplex, that is only one way in a single time of communication. Either when a master is sending the data, the slave should receive it, and when slave is sending the data, the master should receive it, which is called as a half duplex. A bidirectional is either from the master or from the slave. Synchronous is there will be a clock signals which is monitoring the communication between two devices, and a serial interface. The data transfer in this communication is going to be a serial ways. So the two wires are serial clock SCL and serial data SDA. By using these two wires, a master or slave device can be connected. So the serial clock SCL line generates a synchronization clock pulses, and SDA generates or it's responsible for transmitting the serial data across a devices. So one line is used for a synchronization purpose and another line is used for a data transfer or data carrying. So the devices connected to the I2C bus can act as either a master device or a slave device. So master slave model is connected here. So here we can see how the communication is going to happen between a master and a slave devices. So here some of the steps are there. We'll go through that. Always in I2C, the master is going to initiate the communication. So here the first step is the master sends the start bit 1 on SCL. So SCL become high in the beginning, and then the master will send a bit 0 on SDA line. So after this, the master will send the slave address on the SDA wire. The address may be varying from 7 or 8 bit wide. And then the master again sends the control signal, that is whether to read or write on SDA after this 8-bit address. That is, if it sends a single bit 1, then it wants to read from the slave, or if it sends 0, it wants to write the data into the slave. After sending this, the master will wait for the acknowledgement, where a slave is going to send a bit 1 on SDA pin to the master. So the slave responds as send or receive, that is whether read or write. For that signal, it responds as a send or receive the data byte, or that is 8 bits data on the SDA. After this acknowledgement, it expects or it sends acknowledge bit 1 from or to the slave. After transmission of the data and after acknowledging it, then the master sends the stop bit, a bit 1 on SDA. So this is how a communication is going to be initiated and the data is going to be transferred between the two devices. So the data rates for this is going to be a standard mode 100 kbps, fast mode 400 kilobits per second, and high speed mode 3.4 megabits per second. SPI, Serial Peripheral Bus, Serial Peripheral Interface Bus. So here it is also a synchronous, a bidirectional, same as the I2C, but this interface is a full duplex, and this is having 4 wire rather than a 2 wires in the I2C. This SPI also supports a serial interface. A full duplex is nothing but in a single time both a transmission and reception can happen. So SPI is a single master and multi-slave system, where SPI requires 4 signal lines for communication. So it is having a 4 wires. They are MOSI, master out, slave in. Second pin is master in, slave out, MISO. Then SCLK, serial clock, and SS, slave select. Let us see the functions. MOSI. This is a signal line carrying the data from master to slave. So it is a wire which carries the data from master to slave, or it is also called as slave input. MISO, master in, slave out. So this is also a signal line carrying the data from slave to master, or we can call it as slave out. So SCL is used for a synchronization purpose, which is used to generate a clock signal, and SS is a slave select slave device, which is always a active low signal, So address is going to be sent through MOSI, then the slave is going to respond on MISO. After communication is being established between these two, depending upon the clock signals, the data is going to be sent, either read or write. So SPI works on shift registers principles. So that is, a master and slave devices contains a shift registers to data transmit or receive. So whatever the data is being sent or whatever the data is being received is going to be loaded into a shift register. The SPI is also having some register set to control data transfer and are configured in terms of a baud rate, a master or slave selection, a control signal, a clock signal control, and transmission and reception of data. So all these configurations are stored into a register set. So here we can see it in the figure. Then we'll move on to a UART, Universal Asynchronous Receiver and Transmitter. So as the name says, it is asynchronous. That is, it does not require a clock signals for data synchronization. But instead, it uses a predefined agreement between two end devices that are made. So like it is a full duplex communication. That is, here both devices can send their data in a single time. So the predefined agreements based upon a baud rate. Baud rate is nothing but a number of bits per second, which both devices are agreed on the same baud rate. A bits per byte. So basically this UART uses 8 bits per byte of data. Parity bit. So this bit is always telling that a number of ones in the data, in the 8-bit data. That is, either a number of ones are odd, p equal to 1, or a number of ones are even, p is equal to 0. So a parity bit is added in the 8-bit data. And even the baud rate is also added with the 8-bit data. And then a number of start bit and stop bits. So usually 1 bit each. So a start bit is appended in the beginning of the data and stop bit is appended in the end of the data. A flow control bit, that is, which is going to decide either the least significant byte is the first bit or the most significant bit is the first bit. So as we have TXD and RXD two lines here. TXD is here, it is a cross connected. In the figure we can see that TXD is a transmitter line, RXD is a receiver line, where a TXD is connected to the RXD of other device. So in this way the communication is going to be happened. One wire interface. So one wire is a half duplex, that is only one data transmission at a single time, is a half duplex asynchronous communication protocol. So here also there is no synchronization for the data transferred or not. So it has a single line called DQ wire and it follows single master multiple slave model. As in the figure we can see that there is a single master, either a processor or a controller, and there is a wire called DQ connected to the port pin, and that DQ, the slave one, is connected to that pin. So here it can send data as well as power on the same line. The DQ carries the power signal as well as the data signals. So this protocol contains, one wire interface contains globally unique of 64-bit ID. So for addressing individual devices. So basically that 64 is divided into 8-bit family, that is the for which the device is related. 48-bit is a serial number and 8-bit is a CRC. So how the communication happens in this one wire? The master sends reset pulse on DQ line Then slave responds with present pulse. So whichever slave is present, those will send a pulse signal that indicating that slave is present. A master sends address for slave selection. Basically, as we have seen, there is a 64-bit unique ID. So the masters first send a 64-bit data address to select a slave. Then the master sends a read or write command, whether it is going to read or whether it is going to write the data into that slave. Then the master initiates the data to be read or write. So it can ask the data or it can write the data. This is how the communication happens in one wire interface bus. A parallel interface, where it is the onboard parallel communication used for communicating with peripherals devices which are memory mapped. So basically all these parallel ports, parallel interfacing are used for accessing a memory devices from the processor or controller. So in the figure we can see that there is a peripheral device called ADC which is connected to the microcontroller through a data bus. There are some of the control signals, and there is another chipset called address decoder circuit which is connected to the same microcontroller through an address bus. Here the data bus contains a parallel lines, as well as address bus is also contains a parallel lines for sharing address bits. So the processor has control over the read and write signals. The device is simply memory mapped. So whichever the device is connected to a memory mapping, the processor has some of the control over that device, like a ADC. So that ADC, in the figure we can see that the ADC device, which is also having some of the signal lines like RD and WR, read and write. So the width of transmission line or data width can be, so this width of bus can be 4-bit, 8-bit, 16-bit, or 32 or 64 bits also. The device also must have the same width of bus to be connected to a processor for communication purpose. The parallel communication offers a very high speed of data transfer, unlike in the serial communication. After onboard communication, we will move on to external communication interfaces. So here, the external communication interface refers to the different communication channels or buses used by embedded system to communicate with the external world. So here the embedded system is going to be connected with the external world by using some of channels or buses. So the various interfaces for external communications are like we can go for RS-232C and RS-485, or universal serial bus, that popularly known as USB. Then IEEE 1394, a firewire, which is also called as a firewire. Then infrared communication, Bluetooth communication, Wi-Fi communication, Zigbee technology, and general packet radio service, GPRS. We'll go one by one. The first one is RS-232 and RS-485. Here RS refers to a recommended standard. Basically in 1960, the RS-232 was developed by EIA, Electronic Industries Association. So this RS-232C is a legacy full duplex, a wired communication with asynchronous serial communication. So here the RS-232 is just an extension of UART communication signals to the external world. So as we have seen in the UART, it is just having two lines, one is TXD and RXD, where a RS-232 is an extension of UART. So here in RS-232, the logic 0, which is called as space, is represented by plus 3 volts to plus 25 volts, and a logic 1, which is called as mark, is minus 3 volts to minus 25 volts, is represented as minus 3 to minus 25 volts. So this supports two types of connectors, so namely DB9 pin connector and DB25 pin connector. So in the below figure we can see that both DB9 and DB25. In the DB9, basically the DB25 both are available on a desktop computer. In the backside we can see that, which are used for connecting any of other external devices, like in the laboratories, in the embedded controller laboratories or ARM controller laboratories. Whenever we are going to communicate from a computer to a kit, ARM Cortex M3 kit, then we used to have a RS-232 UART communication. So here the DB9, we will go for a DB9 where there are total 9 pins are there. From top 5 pins are there, one from left to right, 1 2 3 4 5, and in the downside 4 pins are there, from left to right 6 7 8 9. So how the communication is going to happen with this, we'll see in the next slide. The RS-232 signal lines are used appropriately to implement modem communications. It may support for all the devices or it may not. Like there are two signals called as a DTE and DCE. DTE is called as data terminal end, which is said as a computer, and DCE is where DCE is data communication equipment. So here DCE is a modem and DTE is a computer. Let us see how these are going to communicate. So DTE has data to send. If the DTE is ready with the data to be sent, then it activates RTS signal, ready to send. RTS is ready to send signal line, which will carry a signal to the DCE. Then DCE will also respond to it. So DCE ready to accept data. To accept the data, it will send or it activates CTS line, clear to send. So DCE responds with the CTS line, clear to send line. Then DTE is ready to accept the data. If the DTE is ready to accept the data, then it activates DTR line, data terminal ready. And if DCE is ready to establish a communication link, then it activates a DSR line, data set ready. So this is on the both sides. DTE is ready, DCE will respond. If DCE is ready, DTE will respond. Always first DTE should be the DTR line should be set, and then DSR line. Then in the fifth point, the DCE acknowledge the DTE for a good signal is being received through a DCD line, data carrier detection line. So if the good signal is being received, the DC is going to acknowledge to DTE through by activating DCD line. Then RI, ring indicator. So this is RI is a modem specific signal for indicating that in any incoming call on the telephone line. If everything is set, then the data is going to be transmitted and received on TXD pin and RXD pin. So here also those TXD and RXD pins are available. The data rates of this is 300. It varies from 300 bits per second to 1200 bits per second or 9600 bps, 11.52 kbps and 19.2 kbps with a maximum of 50 feet distance between the two devices. The RS422 or the RS485, the RS422 is enhanced version for a differential data communication, and it supports a multi-drop communication with up to 1 transmitting devices, 1 master and 10 receiving devices, 10 slaves on the bus with 100 kbps speed and with the distance of 400 feet. The RS485 is one more enhanced version of this 422. So where it can connect to a 30 receiving devices. Next we will go for Universal Serial Bus, USB. In the right side top we can see the figure of USB. It's not a RS232, it's a USB. You'll see on USB. So the USB is wired a high-speed serial bus for data communication, and also it is where the devices are connected in a star topology. In the figure we can see that the topology that the devices peripheral 1, peripheral 2, peripheral 3, 4, 5 are connected to USB host in a star topology. So the connecting distance is up to 5 meters. There are two types, type A and type B, where a type A is used for upstream connection and type B is used for downstream connection. So both contains 4 wires. Either a type A or type B contains a 4 wires. So both contains 4 wires. Pin number 1 is V bus, where it is used to carry a voltage power of 5 volts. Pin number 2 is D minus and pin number 3 is D plus, where both are a differential data carrier lines which are used to carry a data. Then the pin number 4 is a ground. So basically in the USB ports of any computer or in a USB cable we might have seen the 4 wires. So any USB that contains 2 data, that is, one is a product ID, PID and VID, vendor ID. So the data rates that the USB is going to have is from 1.5 Mbps to 12 Mbps and 480 Mbps and 4.8 gigabits per second. So it is nothing but the 1.5 Mbps is basically used said as USB 1.0. The 12 Mbps and 480 Mbps is usually said as USB 2.0 and 4.8 Gbps is usually said as USB 3.0. Next we will move on IEEE 1394, which is also called as a fire wire from the Dallas. So IEEE 13.94 1394 is a wired isochronous high-speed serial communication bus. It is also known as a high-performance serial bus and supports a tree topology with 63 devices connected. That is, it is going to support a tree technology. A 1394 is a popular communication interface for connecting embedded devices like a digital camera, camcorder, scanners to desktop computers for data transfer and storage. So unlike USB interface, IEEE 1394 does not require a host. So without any master, it can be connected to any of 63 devices for communicating between the devices. For example, we can directly connect a scanner or with a printer for printing, or a digital camera is directly being connected to a printer. The data rate supported by 1394 is 400 to 3200 Mbps. The 1394 hardware implementation is much costlier than USB implementation, and it comes up with 4 pins. IEEE comes up with the 4-pin version, 6 pins and 9-pin connectors. So basically all these connectors are having 4 pins, that is TPA plus, TPA minus and TPB plus and TPB minus for transmitting the data or for communication purpose. Next we will move on to infrared interface. Here it is line of sight or a wireless serial data communication with half duplex. That is, whenever two devices wants to communicate with each other, then they should be in the line of sight. They should be visible to each other. And it is a half duplex, only one-way communication. A remote control of our TV or a VCD player works on this principle. So it uses infrared waves of electromagnetic spectrum for transmitting data. Typically, the range of this infrared waves to be transmitted is from 10 centimeters to 1 meter distance for communication. The data rates for this is 9600 bps to 16 mbps. And based upon this, it is based upon the data rates, it is classified into serial IR, SIR, medium IR, fast IR, very fast IR or ultra fast IR. So it is also called as a transceiver, as the infrared is made up of one LED and one photodiode, where LED is acts as a source for infrared rays and generating infrared rays, and photodiode is used for detecting that or receiver. Next we will move on to a Bluetooth. So Bluetooth is a low cost, low power with a short range wireless technology for data and voice communication. So it is a point to point or point to multi-port broadcasting. It has a master and slave model, which is called as a a Piconet, where a Piconet supports a maximum of 7 slave devices. So Bluetooth is favorite for a choice for short range data communication in handheld embedded devices as well as for file sharing. The data rate is up to 1 Mbps with a distance of 30 feet with the operating frequency of 2.4 GHz RF spectrum. So the standards that the BT is going to follow is GAP, generic access port, which is used to detect and establish a connection between the Bluetooth devices. SPP is serial port profile for serial data communication. FTP is file transfer protocol, is used to share files and other media files. HID is human interface device which is used to connect a human interfacing device like a keyboard or mouse. Wi-Fi or wireless fidelity. A Wi-Fi is a popular wireless communication technique for networked embedded systems or any of the systems. It operates in the range of 2.5 GHz to 5 GHz with a radio free spectrum and with the speed of 1 Mbps to 150 Mbps with 100 to 300 feet and uses a wireless standard of IEEE 802.11 with different versions. The third point is it supports IP based multi-point connectivity for data communication. So here in a network, the device is identified by any device is connected in the network is identified by IP address, and it requires intermediate agent like a Wi-Fi router. So the Wi-Fi device contains wireless adapter for transmitting and receiving data in the form of radio signals through antenna. As shown in the figure, we can see that the Wi-Fi router is having an antenna which is generating a radio spectrum where for that channel devices are connected. A ZigBee technology, just a spelling mistake. It is a ZigBee, not a Wi-Fi. ZigBee is a low power, low cost and wireless network communication protocol based upon IEEE 802.15.4, a 2006 standard, and it is made for only a wireless personal area networking. The ZigBee operates worldwide at the unlicensed bands of radio spectrum, mainly at 2.4 to 2.484 GHz and 902 to 928 MHz and 868 to 868.6 MHz. So these are unlicensed bands of radio spectrum, and it supports the operating distance of 100 meters with the data rate of 20 to 250 kbps. So each ZigBee device contains following categories like following hardwares: ZigBee coordinator, ZC, or it's a network coordinator, which it acts as a root for a ZigBee network, it is a base. The ZC is responsible for initiating the ZigBee network, and it has the capability to store information about the network. Whichever the devices are connected to this coordinator, all the information will be stored by this ZC. Then ZigBee router, ZR, so which is called as full function device, which is responsible for passing information from device to another device or to another ZR. So in the figure we can see that ZC is there, which is the main route. Then for that ZC, a number of ZR as well as ZED are connected. The ZED, ZigBee end device, which is operating at the main point or reduced function device, where it is an end device containing ZigBee functionality for data communication. So basically, in a vehicle communication, ZigBee technology is used. Then a general packet radio service, that is GPRS. This function is known by everyone, I think. So we'll go for the points. GPRS is a communication technique for transferring data over a mobile communication network like a GSM. So basically, for connecting to the internet, the GPRS module is going to be switched on in the mobiles. Then that GPRS model is going to connect our mobile with the internet. A data packets are used in this communication. The GPRS supports a theoretical maximum transfer of 117.2 kbps, but nowadays it is in terms of mbps. A radio channel is shared concurrently instead of dedicating to only one device, and one channel divided into 8 time slots. So by using any of the time slot, the device can communicate with other device. The GPRS supports IP protocol, Internet Protocol. PPP is a point-to-point protocol, and X.25 protocol for communication purpose. It is used in mobile-enabled embedded devices for data communication, and the device should support GPRS radio and GPRS modem. So this is up to this section. We will go for newer sections in next video series. Thank you.